So when the lever is not activated, meaning to run the buffer, you shouldn't get any sound. And when the lever activates, you get a sound. So that's saying that that switch is working. If you got a sound when the switch was on, that means that there's a short and that the switch is also bad. So I'm joined with Miguel here in our repair service center, and we're going to review probably the most common repair on a buffer. This just happens to be American Sanders RS-16 DC buffer, which is 115 volts and 175 RPMs. And the most common repair I probably see in the shop is the switch. This is a switch kit from American Sanders, and essentially most of the buffer switch kits or switches themselves are going to be lever activated with a safety, so that once you activate the buffer, if you take your hands off of it, they're going to spring away, close the switch or open the switch and shut the system off. So this is a smaller version, but it's a very common style buffer switch that you'll find up in the handle assembly. Just give you an idea, you know, this is how the levers activate it, like that. You have power going in, so this would be line in here, and then activate it to run the buffer. Miguel's going to show you how to test to see if the switch is good or bad. It's a very simple test. Essentially, it's just a continuity test to see if the switch is active and working. So when the lever is not activated, meaning to run the buffer, you shouldn't get any sound. And when the lever activates, you get a sound. So that's saying that that switch is working. If you got a sound when the switch was on, that means that there's a short and that the switch is also bad. So between the plug here, your cord, those are the first things to check. Plug on the on this particular, it's a pigtail going to the machine, and then the one feeding this is your cable, your cord. You want to check those plugs. You want to check the breaker that you're, the outlet that you're plugging into. So you do all those checks leading up to this. If all of those check out, then we would check the switch. So, I would even check down here at the motor, make sure these plugs were good, the cables were good, not pinched. All of that stuff before you start opening up the machine can probably save you a lot of time. So this particular handle assembly, switch assembly, has, so this is the cover for it, has this kit that American Sanders came up with, where it's kind of like plug and play. Once you get the aluminum cover off, this is a cast aluminum cover. Once you get that off, you can pull your wires off and then replace the switch assembly, put it back together again. There's no need to handle the springs, make sure that they're, operating and touching a switch. 10 years ago, that was an issue. They've simplified that by just, all you do is replace this, which is great. You get new levers, you get a new switch, you get a new safety. Everything's included. Plop it in, plug your wires back, and then you're done. This is essentially our line down to the motor, and this is our line coming in from the wall plate right here. Again, these wiring diagrams are available at cityfloorsupply.com. All you do is go under the vendor, which in this case is American Sanders, go to the model, and you'll see a PDF you can click on and get the manual that in the back of that manual will have a wiring diagram and these part numbers.
That's easy, just
Yep.
one side for the power in,
Right.
and the other side for the motor.
And again, if you're doing this for the first time and you've got this off, what I would do is take a picture of how this came off, and before I pulled wires off, I would mark them so I knew exactly where they were going back when I reassemble it. You heard that snap in. So there's alignment pins in order for this to go in. And then we're going to put the cover. All right, so then what we normally do is just make sure they're freed up, everything's working okay. Now, another part of this repair, while we have it apart, is, this lever lock and the tube clamp assembly. In this case, it has a cord hook on it, which is right here. And what we find is a couple things. One can be the handle tube bends or gets bent, either in transportation or it falls or something happens on the job site. That will prevent this from going up and down. We also find that these get bent, these supports. So these axle supports that clamp onto the handle tube assembly, if they get bent, it will prevent this from going up and down like it's supposed to. And then the other thing we see is that this gets broken or stripped out. All of these parts, you can find their part numbers at cityfloorsupply.com and by the manual, and you can order, call ahead, you can call us and we'll ship them out. But for sure, between the switch and that handle tube clamp, that's probably the most common repair on the buffer before you even get to the motor and the gearbox. So we'll reassemble the handle tube assembly, give you an idea of how that goes. So what he's doing there was just adjusting that tension on the nut here, which is a nylock nut, meaning when it gets onto the threads, you can reposition it and it won't fall off. And by repositioning it, he's adjusting the tension that this lever creates on the handle or tube clamp assembly. So replacing this tube clamp, again, it is aluminum, cast aluminum, and you do have to take all this off. We do recommend that you use some sort of a dry film lubricant, nothing like WD-40 or any of that. You could use WD-40 to break up any material that may be frozen in there, but all that's going to do is attract grit, dust, and a lot of debris. The dry film lubricants that you can find just about anywhere, some sort of like graphite or Teflon, and that will give this surface non-stick so that you get good operation of the clamp assembly up and down. So if you have any questions with regard to switch repair on a buffer, handle tube assembly, anything that we did or covered today, you can give us a call at 800-737-1786 or go to the website at cityfloorsupply.com. Click on the model number. This happens to be the American Sanders RS-16 DC. There'll be a manual on there. You get a parts diagram. You'll get parts numbers in order to order all these parts that we typically have in stock.